Hello and welcome to another Clearwater Jazz Holiday Foundation's Young Lions Jazz Master Virtual Sessions. I am your host, Michael Kernodle, and we are delighted today to talk about jazz with none other than the Dr. Pete Carney. And his topic today is soloing over rhythm changes. I know the good stuff. This is what you came for. We thank you for joining us live. We love the interaction. So if you have any questions or comments, while we're going through this awesome session, just go down there to the chat feature and type it in. And we're going to leave some time at the end to be able to answer any of those awesome questions. You know what? What we're doing today, of course, we want you to share, but I want to remind you that this would not be possible without our wonderful sponsors. So please be sure to check out the studio archives of past video sessions at clearwaterjazz.com's education outreach section. That's brought to you by Blue Water Wealth Management and at Stewart Partners and Duke Energy, as well as our Young Lions podcast available wherever you stream. And that's brought to you by our friends at Marine Max Clearwater. Just search Young Lions Jazz Master Virtual Sessions. If you've been with us the last couple of weeks, you've been noticing Dr. Carney. He is a regular. He's been giving us some great sessions with soloing and using these chord changes and, arpeggios and what scales to use. He knows this because he's out there doing it. He's the director of jazz studies at State College of Florida in Bradenton. You probably see him on stages all over Tampa Bay and throughout the country. I mean, he's giving TED Talks and, he is the man. So without any further delay, we're going to go ahead and say, Dr. Carney, the stage is all yours.
All right, Mike, thanks for having me again. I love doing these workshops. And what I know from teaching students is that people want to learn, how do I play? How do I do that with jazz, like what are the specifics? Like give me real ways to play jazz. And I will find, like most students will find the creative part of like what they want to do. And we're talking about rhythm changes today because it's a real nuts and bolts type of tune to practice. I still practice this most of the times that I get the horn out, even if I only have like 20 minutes, I might do rhythm changes for a couple minutes of that. It's a standard by which your playing is evaluated, and it shows your knowledge. It shows whether you can keep up with this song. So I wanted to talk through the chord changes and how I think about it and what the common ways to think are about the chord changes so that you can get the sound that you want. All right, so let's jump in here and look at this sheet. I'm going to share my screen here. We're also going to talk about, first of all, you want to listen to many people play different melodies on rhythm changes. There's countless melodies, but when you can play rhythm changes, you can play most anything. I really do believe that because it's so rigorous and it has so many options. It's not like there's one way to play it. There's 100 people playing rhythm changes with different personalities, and you have to play that 100 years of the ways that people have made substitutions for it. So I can't really cover all of that because it's like you could pretty much write a 500-page book on how to play rhythm changes based on the way that people have chosen to do it. But I want to talk about just the fundamental ways of getting into it and the basic ways you should practice. So the first thing is you should plan on practicing this really slowly. I don't practice this fast. I perform it fast. Okay. But I usually practice it pretty slow. If I were to say, in my practice routine, I would practice this 70% slow and then 30% fast. So if I had an hour, just divide that up. That's how you build knowledge. You have to print rhythm changes to your brain, how to play it. You're not really memorizing how to play it. All right. You're printing it in terms of learning patterns that will work next time that you can use in public. Doesn't mean you're learning one solo. It means that you're learning to like a process of connections. One of the best things you can do just is practice whole notes over it first, practice half notes over it, practice quarter notes before you get to eighth notes. Okay, so let's look at this basic chart. I pulled up here this, and again on YouTube, I just typed in rhythm changes slow, and this is the one that pulled up. It's a great little tempo. It's nice and easy because it's hard enough as it is. Like I don't like every time I play this slowly, I pick up something new that I didn't play last time. Okay, let me give you an example of that. All right. So some of that stuff I've never played before, I could not play that fast and play that for the first time. Okay, so I've learned it in slow motion, just like a quarterback going through his mechanisms. You're dropping back to pass. You have to go through the mechanics really slowly. Steph Curry talks about shooting threes, and he said, I start under the basket and shoot 100 under the basket, right under it. And then I back up 4 feet and shoot 100 from there. And I back up 4 feet and shoot 100 from there, and etc. until he gets to the three line and he shoots 100 from there. Okay. He says shooting the three starts under the basket every day. That's the same thing here. You have to start at 110 to learn stuff on rhythm changes. All right, so let's talk about ways to play over it. The first way is a way that was taught to me, I don't know, 20 years ago, in this great way, which is just approaching this as basically B flat, bebop 7. So it's a B flat major scale with both sevens in it. So it has I like to teach it with numbers because kids stick with that. Like it has both sevens of the chord. Everybody can kind of understand. It's got the flat 7 and the major 7. And just playing that bebop scale over this will get you a lot of mileage. And it's something I still do in performance where you're, in a sense, just sort of playing it as a modal tune. It's nice for like a half a chorus or 4-bar phrases. You don't want to do it for 4 choruses because it sounds like you're avoiding the chords. Okay, but let me give you an example of that's what this sounds like. I'm just going to play this as B flat dominant with a major 7 added to the scale. So it gives me a nice even 8-note scale. Let's check that out. Right, and even after one time through, you can start to hear that it starts to sound a little vanilla, you know. Another very similar option is to play this as B flat major bebop 7. So that has both 6s in the scale. That's your B flat major scale, and you add the flat 6 to the scale or the flat 13. That just gives you an extra 8th note. So you have 8 notes instead of 7. Let's listen to that. It's better than playing your B flat major scale over this because that 7-note group is a little awkward because you're not landing on the beats in regular phrases. And you're not hitting goal posts in a sense or hitting the bar line. So here's the major bebop scale. Right? You can hear how it sounds great when you start to speed it up. Okay, so the problem with this is that you're sort of avoiding dealing with the chords, but the benefit is that you are using your ear to say this kind of works or this one doesn't work in that moment. Because you're using an overriding scale, you have to use your ear to tell you where am I in this progression a little bit. Okay. The next aspect here, again, those are totally useful. And I talked about doing half notes or whole notes. Let's do that. Right? It's not really fun practicing, but it is knowledgeable practicing where you're improving your knowledge. Whole notes really do teach you to get into places that you don't usually play. And again, I'm working on whole notes, moving by step or half step, trying to keep a rule going, which is a consistent line. Um, that builds a good sense of logic in your playing as you go. Half notes are more fun, and you start to feel like a bass player a little bit playing in two. I'm going to play half note lines here. All right. Doesn't mean you can't improvise a little bit with it. All right. So don't think that it has to be some sort of doctrine of like absolutes. I think that it does. If you improvise around with this concept, it gives you a feeling and a connectivity to the information that will be there later on. So you have a solid relationship. Being a creative person with half notes, when you come back to playing half notes in a faster tempo, you feel pretty good about it. Let me give you an example. If I take that half note concept and let's speed it up. Oh, this isn't as loud. Hold on. Let me turn this up a little bit. Right? So again, what I have there are a lot of goalposts that I'm hitting. I'm using half notes to teach me my way through from this B flat major to the G7, from the G7 to the C minor, from the C minor to the F7. Okay, it's teaching me to pop through these chords and show the sort of elevation of the harmony, especially in rhythm changes, or to show it moving downward in steps. I love showing the elevation of the harmonic motion here because you get rhythm changes is a bright tune, right? It is just bright and exciting and happy and joyful. So I bring that out, and I think most people do too. So when I say bringing that out, the half step line ascending sounds like this. Right? You hear how that line going up is just like jazz celebration of life. The chord is your half note line going up by half steps is moving against the chord progression, which is moving was 5 progression. So let's talk about the inside of that. The inside of it, of what happens next is absolutely the next level. So you've got the B flat major here, and what's important is that this G7 doesn't have some of that B flat major. What's going to make your rhythm changes solo sound great is that you differentiate these chords from one another. If they are all B flat diatonic, then you get that sort of okay sounding solo, but not definitive. The beauty of rhythm changes is defining this difference here. So to to describe that in notes, like this is the D of this chord, sorry, the B flat root of this turning into the B, which is the third of the G7, the B right here of the G7 turning into the C, all right, going up the E flat here because that's the seventh of the G7, or another option is to play the flat 13 here. It's a beautiful option. We'll get to that in a minute. Okay, but again, from the beginning, B flat, B, C, then I would play C, D as a quarter note, and then E flat, and then I could play E flat, E to F if I wanted to get me to the F here. So let's show you what that sounds like. It sounds just like anybody, to be honest. It doesn't sound like me. It sounds like Louis Armstrong or Clark Terry, anybody. Right, so it just walks straight up the progression. I'll do it one more time. I'll play it a little better. Right, so that's what builds the logic of your line. If I again, I have to research that to speed it up later. Again, sped up later, it sounds like this. Right? It doesn't work if I don't know how to do that. If I can't play half notes, I can't play 16th notes. I can't play anything. You can't play anything fast until you can play it all slow, generally speaking. All right. So that's a nice sort of ascending line of harmony that moves through here that gives you a beautiful sense of logic. You know, a lot of times young players come in and they start playing really advanced stuff in your first chorus of your rhythm changes solo. And that can kind of, one, agitate your listener, and it just feels like you're trying to start on third base rather than building a solo from the history of rhythm changes. So you have to come from the foundation of the history of this knowledge, you know, to and put that in your solo. Otherwise, it just comes across the wrong way most of the time. Now, if you're in a jam session and there's 10 cats playing rhythm changes, like by the time you get to number 8 or number 9, like I still feel like you should start from the early stuff, you know, because you want your listener to trust you. If you start with some outer space stuff, like they don't know if you can play the song, first of all. You know, the song, whatever the outer space stuff is just an extension of you playing the history of the song first. So you can't start with chapter 12 or episode 12 of a mini series. All right. What else here? So there's tons of these little connections here that you want to look for in terms of getting across the chords. Let's start on the fifth of the chord. I'm going to start on the F, and I'm going to go down through the chords. Right? So then I caught myself being creative. I said, no, wait, hold on here, Carney. You told him you were going to keep going down. So I leapt up, but then I did, okay, get back, follow the rule down. And that turned out to be really pretty because otherwise I had leapt away from a difficult choice. A lot of times as students, and even me, and all of us, is our tendency to go back to what we played before. So I had I read right from there. I leapt from the A up to the F instead of following it down to the G below it. You know what I mean? So that leap was beautiful, but it was even more beautiful if I pulled myself back to the rule and kept the line moving downwards. Okay, so that's like a general way to practice this. We talked about whole notes, half notes. Also, I would say here, we talked about playing the bebop scale, the major and the dominant. Those are really useful. incredibly powerful when you speed up. All right, let's demonstrate that at a faster tempo. Just the two bebop scales we talked about first. I'll do the B flat dominant scale first. Right? So you can hear that it gets you, it totally gets you over the chords without something you have to be able to do. You also have to be able to play the major bebop. Right? And it sounds a little brighter. It's kind of more optimistic. To me, it's a little bit happier, maybe. Okay. So those are like the foundation of one part. Okay. Part one, I would say. Let's go back up here and talk about the next thing you should do, which takes you to the next level. Without a doubt, that is absolutely the first level. You have to be able to do everything we just talked about. The second level that you're not allowed to practice until you've gotten through level one is to start using arpeggios. And this is a beautiful thing we get from Charlie Parker and Dizzy Gillespie. And just going up and down the chords with the basic chord. Play any sixes on a chord or 13s. If you play any nines, you don't really win. Okay. If you play a fourth of the scale, in most cases, you don't, any of the major scales or the dominant chord, it's going to sound like a passive note. Not necessarily wrong note, but it's not going to sound like a, it's not a note with conviction. So I'm just going to play through this and just arpeggiate these chords with the 4 basic chord tones. Right? So that's just a very, very strict approach. What makes it even more beautiful is to add alterations to the chord. This is where I would say it's one of the hardest parts of rhythm changes, but it's also the most elegant and the most killer instinct jazz way to play it. It has the most momentum. So for example, on the B flat major, I'm going to keep that as is, but on the G7, I'm going to make this G7 altered, especially the flat 13 and the sharp 9, flat 9 combination. Those are the most important, I think. And I think standard dialogue of jazz would generally agree with me on that. On the C minor 7, I'm just going to leave that alone. And on the F7, I'm going to make this F7 altered. And again, just real quickly on this, how do I make F7 altered? I turn this into basically F sharp melodic minor over F. So you get, instead of F7, I play F7 altered, which is F sharp minor major 7 or melodic minor, it's the same thing, over F. So I get this sound. Right? So it just has more guts to it. It's more pushy against the tonality because you have the alterations. They create momentum in the harmony. If this is all diatonic, it feels like the harmony's going nowhere. Alterations It's sort of like gives it like this giant steps effect where the chords are changing more drastically. It's not the same as giant steps, obviously, but to me, it's a similar technique. Okay, so make the dominant chords in this song altered. Um, Again, in this chart here, some of these are personalized choices. Like this E half diminished. It's a personalized choice for this person's track. That's a whole another conversation point about rhythm changes. Is like, well, the chord, just the inner chord substitutions. Um, I just treat this as, you can play this F minor and B flat seven, or you can just play a bar of C7 and a bar of F7 here if you want. I definitely don't. Most people play this as E flat seven, not E flat major. So it sounds stronger. It has more blues in it. It has more guts to it. All right, so let's look at that. Let's listen to that. I'm going to arpeggiate these chords, right? But then I'm going to add alterations to each of the chords. Right? And again, I'm just practicing. I'm just working on the A section most of the time. The bridge is sort of your vacation. You have to play four dominant chords in a row. There's a lot of things you can do there too. Don't get me wrong, but the work of your life is playing this song, and the A sections of it are the tricky part. So I just made all these dominant chords um, heavier by adding flat 9, sharp 9, flat 13. I didn't even really add sharp 11. Um, because it's a little bit harder for me personally, and it's harder to define as an alteration. It doesn't have enough time to settle into the mix. Whereas sharp 9 is just fantastic, and flat 9 is fantastic, and flat 13, like on this F7, I would recommend you take D flat and you stick it in here all the time because it just gives you so much guts on that moment. Check that out. Right? Do it again like a different way. You hear that giant D flat? It just gives you so much personality, more than the fifth of the chord would not give you that personality. If I played the normal C there, it sounds more diatonic and kind of bright. So alterations are harder to put in at faster tempos, and maybe that's why people play the song, because it's really hard. At the end of the day, it's like a tune of your life that you should always be working on. There's just so many countless ways to play it. What else can we do with this here? Those are the main things. Like, those are the ways that I really kind of approach this, and I think they're the foundation of what you want to sound like. The benefit of practicing this slow is also that you can speed it up and still survive the tempo. Okay, so you don't play fast by attacking um, rhythm changes at a fast tempo. You learn stuff slowly and you gradually speed it up. And playing double time is a great way to settle your ideas down and help them find the pocket. Most of the time when people play their fast stuff, they're rushing. Your fast stuff, 90% of people rush playing 16th notes. So I would encourage you to try and force yourself to drag and sit on the back of the pocket, and you'll have more success than you think. Um, it's sounds so much better to be late to a chord than early, because when you're early to a chord, you take the resolution out of it. You know what I mean? You kind of blow the landing point. So we just don't have a problem playing too slow. We usually have a problem playing too fast. So right there's that big flat 13 again. So I would encourage you to always look for that flat 13 um, on the dominant chord. It just gives it so much more personality. I would encourage you to check out this. This is just insane. These two guys, Mike Tucker and Tucker Antel, they have this killer tenor battle, and it's just like a textbook of how to play rhythm changes. They're doing Eternal Triangle to Sonny. Uh, I think it's Sonny Stitt and Sonny Rollins and Disney recorded this first. Let's just check out some of it has this transcription over here, and this is on YouTube. Just look for Mike Tucker, Tucker Antel. Man, this is like just tenor madness incarnate. These guys really go at it, and they show you their research. This isn't magical happenings or anything. There's no wizardry here. It's just a lot of hard work and a lot of slow practice. Check a little bit of this out. Right, and if you, I know it's so humbling. It is absolutely humbling every time I hear this thing. But you can as a young player, and even for me, I still come back and look at this thing and say, "Oh man, look at all these chord tones they're playing. It's just all over it." Right? It's like it's J.S. Bach in motion with soul and blues. It's not something else, man. This is just counterpoint lessons number one. So check it out. That's my best reference point of, like, there's tons of recordings, and this is like sort of descendant from Johnny Griffin playing his song Mildew is a fantastic resource. Obviously Sonny Rollins and Miles Davis and Coltrane. There's just countless versions of Oleo and tunes like that. So put yourself around people on YouTube that are doing it, young people and the older guys or the people that are gone, so that you hear the whole history of the song and you realize it's just being part of a beautiful conversation. In the end, you get to participate in a song people have been talking about. People like spent their life playing this tune, and that's always inspiring to me. And whenever I get to play it, I feel like it's an opportunity to be part of history. So I hope that helps. And if you have any questions, you can always reach out to me at pete@interactivelistening.com. I think that's all I got for today. It's a hard tune and it's a lifetime commitment, but I enjoy it all the time. So thank you.
Well, you know what, Dr. Carney, I love how you said it's part of being part of a conversation. Right. And also, I mean, I see the technical side of it, and you did mention, we still want to hear what you have to bring to the table. We still want the soulfulness, But
Yeah.
man, how awesome is it to have these tools in your toolbox when you got to pull them out? And I do like how you put it on the screen and we went through the chord changes and you could see everything. That's powerful because, you know, with us having this stuff in the archives, you can always pause it, go back and play it. I mean, this is pretty much like a private lesson, what you just did.
Pretty much, you know, I like, you know, jazz is supposed to be shared with people, and there's always somebody that's going to do something new with it. In the old days, you know, jazz wasn't, it was very secretive, and the first generations of cats, besides Dizzy Gillespie, a lot of them didn't necessarily share how to do it because it was your job. You know?
Right. They like to eat, right?
You're giving your secret, yeah, you're giving away your paycheck. So, but now with the way jazz education today, it's very share centric, you know, so I like giving you as much as I can about it because it's hard enough to do it without, well, it's just hard to do anyways. So everybody's not going to climb that mountain, but here's the roadmap, you know.
And we always need that roadmap because, I mean, just saying to a student, do it, doesn't really do anything for them. So, I mean, I do like, you know, how you show be patient with the process. Yeah, it's not exciting to practice with half notes, but man, if you can get that muscle memory and get it in your ears, what's happening, then you can bump up the speed a little bit. And then, you know, when you hear those lines, you're understanding what's happening. So I really enjoyed this session. And I hope our listeners, they're sharing what they're hearing today because this is what people need to hear. This is what people need to know to not just enjoy being a listener, but hop in there and have some confidence in what we're doing. So we highly suggest, guys, keep sharing. And maybe there's a topic that we didn't cover yet, or you may want to tell us how much you love hearing Dr. Carney sessions. You know, you can always email us at info@clearwaterjazz.com. We love hearing from you guys. And also don't forget to check out our past archives and just stay tuned because there's so many great things that's coming your way. So Dr. Carney, thank you again for this awesome session. And we're looking forward to the next one. And until next time, I've been your host, Michael Carnot. Like we always say, keep it swinging, everybody. Bye-bye.